Oh my God, are we live? We're live right now. Hi guys.
Night.
Welcome to King's Virtual Poetry House featuring AG, Johnna Blystone, hopefully Jlani, hopefully Jordan and his crew. We'll see what happens. First things first, I'm gonna do a little screen sharing and share a video with you guys. I had just rediscovered it. It's really interesting. Here we are. Share computer sound, optimize screen sharing for quick video. Can everyone see okay?
Yep. Oh, I love this.
Gentlemen, open your text, page 21 of the introduction.
Can everyone hear okay?
Mr. Perry, will you read the opening paragraph of the preface entitled Understanding Poetry?
Understanding Poetry by Dr. J. Evans Pritchard, Ph.D. To fully understand poetry, we must first be fluent with its meter, rhyme, and figures of speech. Then ask two questions. One, how artfully has the objective of the poem been rendered? And two, how important is that objective? Question 1 rates the poem's perfection. Question 2 rates its importance. And once these questions have been answered, determining the poem's greatness becomes a relatively simple matter. If the poem's score for perfection is plotted on the horizontal of a graph, and its importance is plotted on the vertical, then calculating the total area of the poem yields the measure of its greatness. A sonnet by Byron might score high on the vertical, but only average on the horizontal. A Shakespearean sonnet, on the other hand, would score high both horizontally and vertically, yielding a massive total area, thereby revealing the poem to be truly great. As you proceed through the poetry in this book, practice this rating method. As your ability to evaluate poems in this manner grows, so will your enjoyment and understanding of poetry.
Excrement. That's what I think of Mr. J. Evans Pritchard. We're not laying pipe. We're talking about poetry. How can you describe poetry like American Bandstand? Well, I like Byron. I give him a 42, but I can't dance to it. Now, I want you to rip out that page. Go on. Rip out the entire page. You heard me. Rip it out. Rip it out! Go on. Rip it out! Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Gentlemen, tell you what, not just tear out that page, tear out the entire introduction. I want it gone. History. Leave nothing of it. Rip it out. Rip! Be gone, J. Evans Pritchard, Ph.D. Rip! Shred, tear, rip it out! I want to hear nothing but ripping of Mr. Pritchard. We'll perforate it. Put it on a roll. That's the Bible. You're not going to go to hell for this.
I really wanted to show that because people have this awful misconception of what poetry is. Poetry is whatever the fuck you want it to be. I swear to God. It's like, it's derived from the Greek word poiesis, which means making or creation. And anything that is of you is poetry and uniquely yours. So yeah, I just wanted us to keep that in mind as we go forward today. Now let's chat. The way this is structured, I don't prepare questions. But I want to learn more about you two as artists. So let's get to that. What inspired either of you to like start creating?
Oh, do you care if I go first?
Go for it.
Okay. Somebody asked me this like a year ago, and I think I said I started it out of pure like necessity. Like I was at a point in my life where I didn't have anything else, so I had no other option but to create something. Like I had nothing left. Like life was at a low point, and I just felt like I had abandoned writing and art for so long. I just decided, what do I have left to lose if I try this new venture? And I wrote one poem, and I just felt like it just made so much sense. It just made me feel like I had something now, and I had something to keep me going. And that's probably just why I keep doing it, because it's something that keeps me going. And now I have something that I can look back on in a year and say, yeah, I did that, I made that, and I can be proud of that.
That's awesome. Johnna, you have
So,
anything to add to that?
yeah, I think I come from a very different place, because for as long as I can remember, maybe not necessarily poetry, but I've been writing. Since I was about, I think 3 years old was when I read my first book. And ever since then, you can't find me without a book in my hands. And it was like food to me. Like, it was such a necessity in my life to constantly be reading, to constantly be absorbing. And then one day I remember thinking to myself, after I'd finished a really, really good book, I was like, what if I did this? What if I sat down and what if I wrote this story but my way? And so one of my favorite memories will always be the summers that I spent sitting at my mom's computer when I was 7, 8, 9 years old. Just and while my brother was outside playing with the neighbor kids, I would sit inside on her laptop and write these stories that were just in my head and get them out on paper and think, I know I've read this, I know I've heard this from such and such author, and I've seen this story and I've heard this character's voice, but what's inside of me that I can move people in the same way that I was moved by these books? So writing at first started as a game of imitation, of learning through copying, through adopting, and almost the evolution of what I've absorbed and then what I want to put out. And then from there, it developed into almost a sort of therapy for me. So as I grew up and was traveling through some of the harder years in my life, I reverted to poetry as a form of artistic expression of all of the abstract feelings that I was dealing with through growing up. And that's what it's continued to be to me for this day. Like, it's therapeutic for me. It's how I make sense of all of the chaos around me.
I like that a lot. As you grow into yourself as a writer, you learn a certain syntax, a certain sequence of words to evoke emotions in people. And most of that is like trial and error. But what was one moment where you felt like you really got it? Like, of all the things you did wrong, this was the one thing you did really right. When was that, and what was the context?
Okay, I have mine. When I started my Instagram for my writing, I didn't do it with the intention of anybody knowing about it, which is why I never put my name on it. Like, I was just having I wanted somewhere to put it, so that's where it went. And I was following some people, and I was following the Ponder Man. That's my best friend. But at the time we weren't friends, and I loved his poetry, and I wrote something, posted it. He put it on his story, and he was like, "This is so great," or whatever he said. I don't know. And I think that was the first time I felt like, oh my God, someone else is reading it, and someone else is moved by it, and someone else is feeling something from it that is totally their own. It's no longer just mine. And I felt like, wow, I could really do this, not for the sense of getting someone else's validation, but just for the fact that I can share and know that people are going to hear me. And I think that was one of the biggest moments for me.
Yeah, I think similarly, one of the first times I ever realized that my voice had true power was through my experiences with speech and debate and original oratory. It wasn't my first year, it was sometime in the middle of my second year. I had written about something that was particularly close to my heart, and something that was really difficult for me to talk about in front of people. And that was some of the struggles that my family had in their marriage, my parents' marriage, and some of the family dynamic, which is something that I continue to struggle with to this day. But it was the first time that I had talked about it with people through writing and through speaking and public performance. And I remember the first time I ever got a comment on a critique that said, like, this moved me to tears. And I remember that being so important to me because that was when I realized that the hardships I had gone through and the trials I had gone through, they weren't for naught. Like, I was put here with a voice and with the power to write for the sole purpose of transforming those damaging or hurtful experiences into something to help and move and touch others. So I think very similarly to what she said, when I realized how much of an impact my writing could have on others, and it wasn't just for me, it was for everyone around me too, I think that was just such a powerful moment.
Jlani, are you there? You have to unmute.
All right, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you good. Did you hear the question asked?
What you asked?
When was that moment where you feel like, where you first felt like you could really like evoke emotions from people? And you like really touched them in a way that you didn't really know how to before?
I would have to say the first time I ever wrote a poem, actually, back in high school, my junior year, English, we had to write a sonnet. Prior to that, I've never wrote a poem in my life, so my first time writing a poem, people actually reacted to it like I was a veteran at writing poetry. So in that moment, that's when I figured out I had a natural gift for writing and putting words together.
I like that.
Yeah. Can I ask you the same question?
Oh, for sure. I didn't know you was going to ask me questions, but yeah. The first poem I ever wrote was in 8th grade.
Right.
I wrote it on Halloween, actually. And I was like, I was afraid of myself. I didn't know what I was capable of academically. I thought I was gonna fail. Like I didn't. But then I found writing, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm gonna write this little poem, enter it into this little school contest, see what happens, right? So I win the contest. That makes me feel good as fuck about like everything that's happening.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, like maybe this is it. Maybe this is how I express myself.
Yeah.
And like I showed it to my foster parents. I showed it to the people at my SAR. Like, I went into Jane Edna. I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that's like the foster kid building. And I gave it to one of the people at the like. It's like a pre-custody hearing. And they cried, and I was like, oh shit, like I can give you like pieces of my life, like pieces of me, and when I found out how to do that, it was just over. I was like, yeah, I was like, this is it right here.
Yeah, that's amazing, man.
So I got a little bit more to ask y'all. I want to know what it is about what you do that makes it singular and just unique. Or maybe you don't think you're singular and unique, but like, what is your voice? Where does it come from?
My voice comes from the inside, you know, my authentic self. That's what makes my work singular and unique. I don't try to emulate nobody else. I stay true to me, and I write from a place that only I can feel.
I would say probably along those same lines. I think, because I mean, I put it in my little bio thing. My motto has always been cheers to being honest. And that's what I tell myself every time I want to, like, if I write something, it doesn't always mean I'm going to share it. But if I do, I have to be honest with it. If I'm writing something, I have to be honest. I'm not going to try to be like somebody else or write like somebody else or write from somebody else's point of view, their feelings. It has to be all my own, because that's what in the end is going to help me and heal me and make it worthwhile to me. So it's a singular experience every time I write something, because like you said, nobody else can feel what I'm feeling. No one else can say it the way that I can. And that's the way I want it.
I really agree with all of that. I mean, personally, something that's always inspired me, a quote that I've pulled and I intend to get tattooed one day, is the quote, "We're all stories in the end." And I think that has so much to do with what we all do. We're all telling our stories, and not just our stories either. I think one fascinating thing about writing is that you can choose to write from anyone's perspective, given that it's your slant on that perspective. It's your interpretation of any type of perspective you want. And writing is just an amazing opportunity to exercise your creative flexibility in that sense. So how far can you stretch yourself? How far can you push to consider ideas different than your own, to consider concepts that you maybe haven't ever heard of before, and to dabble in every emotion that you've ever even glimpsed in your life, like everything that's ever gone past you, take it and magnify it and see what you come up with. And I think I try to show that through my poetry. I think there are times where I don't necessarily succeed, or if I do fall into the habit of, I don't want to say like same old, but getting stuck on one emotion and not utilizing my emotional flexibility or poetic flexibility. But I think that's something I always strive to do creatively with everything that I write and put out into the world.
I want you guys to tell me about your low points as creators, as authors. Like, do you ever look at your work and wonder like why you do it, or just why it is that you spend so much time pouring yourself into your work? Low points when you like sort of have a block, or you lose faith, or you're just not sure about yourself.
I think I feel that way when I'm happiest in the rest of my life. I've said that before on like my account, is when I'm happy, just genuinely happy, I can't write anything. I can't make anything. Nothing feels good. It's not necessarily like I want to be depressed. I want to be that kind of artist where I can only, make my best stuff when I'm at a terribly low point. But I just feel like when I'm happy, that's it. I'm happy. I'm not experiencing anything else. I have to be able to experience all aspects of my life, every emotion, every shade. There's two extremes. I can't be happy or sad. I have to be somewhere in between to be able to create something. So every time I get to a point in my life where I'm like really happy, I'm like, shit, I know everything else is about to like just go away for a minute. And then I get stuck in this cycle where I'm like, now I know I have a block. I'm aware of it. It's coming. How long is it going to take? And then I just feel really frustrated. Like I wrote something once, when I don't have the words, my world crumbles or something. Like when I can't write, I just feel like everything's kind of falling in on me. And then somehow that cycle comes out in the end where I can actually write something. So that's a very complex way to explain it, but
On that, like, I think that's a shift between like participant and observer. I feel like when you're truly happy and everything is going well, you're participating. Like this is your life and you're experiencing it. But writing is just recording. Even if you're writing fantasy or fiction, you're recording a series of images and like thoughts. And you can't always do that when you're not introspective, when you're in the moment and embracing what's here and now. So I don't think you should fight that. I think when you have blocks, just like live a little.
I try. Yeah, that's my thing now. When I like right now, I kind of have a block, but I'm going with it and I'm putting my energy into other things because I know eventually I'll come back to it. So I try not to stress. It'll come.
Anything to add on that?
I think I almost have the opposite problem. I know that once everything happened with quarantine and everything shut down, I know it was really hard for me to apply myself to any sort of expression, whether that was through writing or through any other thing that I was doing. And I think a lot of that was because it felt like there was such a void, and I felt very powerless in filling it. So I think whenever I'm alone with my thoughts, it's a lot harder for me to self-motivate and to put any of those I'm so sorry, my dogs are yelling, but it's a lot harder for me to I don't know if the word is like siphon or concentrate any of that creative energy into actually putting something down on paper and feeling proud of it. If I get on a writing roll, like I'll go a month where I'm just churning out content and I feel great about it. And it's almost like a machine where, you know, the ideas keep coming and the muse is just right here in my room, and I can put out, you know, 3, 4, 5, 10 poems and feel fantastic about every one of them. But I find that I do need to talk to people to get that inspiration, to almost creatively collaborate with the different personalities that I have in my life and draw from each of them as inspiration. So
I have another question sort of related to this. So it's like, do you think that to be an artist, to be an author, to be a writer, a poet, whatever, do you think you need to have experienced a deep pain to do that?
yeah, I think it certainly helps. I think that in experiencing any type of extreme emotion comes the need to create, to tell, to share that emotion with others. And we as humans are social creatures. We're storytellers by nature. So I think experiencing any kind of extreme sadness or tragedy in your life will certainly assist you in that. Now, I don't think it's necessarily like a necessity to that end. I think extreme happiness or euphoria or gratefulness or even religiousness, if you're a highly religious person and you're devout and you feel moved by that, I think that's enough to inspire some type of beauty to come out of that. So I don't think it has to be extreme tragedy, but I think it has to be some sort of powerful emotion that moves you to share with others.
So an extreme something. I like that. Anything to add?
I mean, you said it really well. I feel like I completely agree with that. I feel like every friend that I've made that's a writer, we all have some commonality in the sense that we all have experienced intense, extreme, heart-wrenching pain, and that has been usually the catalyst for any of our creative endeavors. But I think from that, you can, I don't want to, it's not a necessity to experience, but I feel like if you do experience any deep extreme emotion, that lets you kind of tap into every other emotion. Now you've reached, you know, the bottom. You have so many other places you can go, so many other things you can feel. Like that was how it was for me, where I experienced something really intense and realized this isn't the only intense emotion I have to feel. There's a lot of other things I can explore. So I would agree, it doesn't need to be tragedy or sadness or, you know, a deep, terrible, dark depression, but extremes, yes, do tend to help.
What is it that you want your writing or your message to do to people? How do you want it to play out in their lives? If you could pick an ideal scenario, what would it be?
That's hard because I don't write with the intention. I try not to write with people in mind. Like I try not to write and think people are going to read this. But ideally, I would want people to keep my words somewhere. Like a lot of the time, if I read something that I'm really moved by, I'll write it down or I'll save it on my phone or whatever so that I'll have it with me somehow. So ideally, I would love for people to want to keep my words somewhere other than Instagram or whatever, which is ideally in my book if I ever get finished with it. But I just want people to feel like I need to keep these words with me, whatever they are. I just want to have them in as a part of my life.
Yeah, I think for me,
Wait, Jlani, are you talking? You gotta unmute.
Mute.
There you go.
Okay, yeah. Anytime I write, my goal is to inspire others however I can. You know, inspire them to overcome, inspire them to conquer, inspire them to be the best possible version of themselves. Also, I want to enlighten people when they hear my words. So yeah, basically, I just want to inspire people. I want to impact people, and I want to influence them in a positive way, the best way I can.
Like that.
And then I think the only thing that I ever want to accomplish with any of my writing is for the people who read it to feel a little less alone. I think that's it. I don't want anybody to feel alone in their emotions or like they're the only person feeling a certain way. I just want them to feel like there's someone out there who understands, or at least the potential for somebody to understand.
One of my favorite quotes in the world is from Neil Hilborn. He's a button poetry poet. And he has this poem called I think it's called This Is Not the End of the World or something like that. And in it, he says, whatever you're feeling right now, there's a mathematical certainty that someone else is feeling that exact same thing. That's not to say that you aren't special. That's to say, thank God that you aren't special. I think that's really dope. I have one more question to ask you guys. Are you ready to perform?
Yes.
Yes.
I kind of want to start with Jlani. Jlani, you ready?
Yeah. And
All right.
by the way,
wait, 1 second. Everyone go into speaker view.
Going to what?
Speaker view, so you can just see who's speaking at all. I don't know how it works on like mobile, but
yeah, I don't know either.
But you're good to start whenever you want to start.
All right. And one thing, my name is Jlani.
Jlani.
Yeah, Jlani.
My fault.
No, you cool, bro. But yeah, I just want to perform 2 poems related to adolescence, like you said the thing would be. As you know, I kind of speak for the people who come from my type of background, the settings I grew up in, the inner city and whatnot. So this first poem I called Blackout, a message to guns. So it goes, before you spread among us like disease, our warm hearts were wrapped in well-being. The coldness felt with you in our poem traveled within us with great power. One touch makes one feel untouchable, and now you're wiping us out. My heartbeat sprints to the sounds you speak. My anxiety grows knowing I am defenseless. My fears reappear showing strength, and my worst dreams become a reality. Life on earth vanished from my brother. You planted hate inside the other. Revenge is picked up and held onto, and tears fall from my mother. The worst has yet to come. My mind knows without a doubt. You infect the hearts of men as you continue to wipe us out. That's the end of that one.
Damn, bro. Okay, then. Okay. All right.
All right, so the next one I wrote is called Silent Tears of a Teenage Father After the Abortion. Deep inside of me is agony refusing to be free. In the morning of an unborn death, all I have is dreams of the seed my eyes won't see. Your mother and I came to the gut-wrenching decision. The fear of failing to uphold responsibility kept the both of us in nightly battles with sleep. A newborn prisoner of poverty was the greatest possibility. God's gift of new life miserably rejected. How could I guide a child when I'm still guiding myself? The pressure weighed heavy on my heart. My seed conceived out of wedlock to parents with no wealth. I wiped lonely tears for my broken companion and looked to the stars in the night sky above for my unborn child who was robbed of the chance to feel love. And that's that one.
Bruh, why you popping off like that? I don't understand. Like, that
I
go,
appreciate it, bro.
bruh, that shit just hit me in my chest. Like, you don't even, bruh. Yeah, I
I
gotta show this to
appreciate
my
it, man.
brother, bruh. All right, then. You
I
got some more
appreciate
for
that.
us or no?
I just had those two.
All right, bet. Um, let me mute you right quick.
Okay.
All right. Let's get Johnna up here. We want to hear from Johnna. Let's do
All
it.
right. So after you told me the prompt, I went ahead and I wrote a poem inspired by sort of like the slam poetry style. And then I have a couple that I posted on my Instagram that I feel like apply. So I was going to go through and do, I think, 2, possibly 3. We'll see how I feel after the second one. But the first one that I wrote specifically after you told me about this prompt, it's titled Icarus and the Fall. When I turned 18, I thought that would be the end of it. I thought my days as a child were numbered, and March 26th was that sweet, sweet expiration date. I had never looked forward to something spoiling before. I imagined myself halfway stuck in a metamorphosis, chrysalis breaking free as the sun kissed my feet, and awakened that morning, unbearably the same. You see, unlike the sun, maturity did not kiss me with virgin revenants, so much as it tore past every lacy, beautiful thing I had loved about the word young. Like a greedy man in a seedy bar, fingers poised for the next waistband to cross his path, I had mature shoved down my throat since before I knew the word suffocate. Learned how to handle my father's baggage before learning how to check in my own at the airport. And here I am, 18, still lost between gates. In some ways already mid-flight, in others still waiting in the parking garage, terrified of heights. What a lovely kind of Icarus I am. My mother burned flight into my bones like I was born for it. Like my limbs were made for her soaring aspirations. Mother, how old was I when I realized even my hollowness cannot support your weight in the sky? How old will you be when you realize that I am so weary from the carrying that I have been earthbound for years? And when will we decide together I should never have wanted to be hollow in the first place? Children are not meant to be empty. But my father, overflowing, lets his excess pour into me. Deaf to my absolution, he monologues like he loves the sound of sorrow. He taught me to be quiet. He couldn't hear me anyways, and he wouldn't listen if he could. And though he chanted, "Don't grow up," his infantile need convinced me I should. When I turned 18, I thought I'd be free of Echo's plight. I thought I'd be liberated from my mother's lust for flight. I thought maybe after 18, I'll forget the cold fingers of fright, yet my throat is still freezing and my wings still don't work right. You see, my childhood began ending the first time alone sounded like a blessing. When home stopped being home, and I know I'm confessing that when I think of home, I think that word is way too perplexing. And when were we children? When were we kids? Maybe when I first begged for mother to appreciate my wavering half flight, half fall, or maybe in fact when I stopped begging for her at all. I became more of a child, planted firmly on the ground, while Persephone tickles my nose with a rosebud she found. Icarus no more. The morning I turned 18, the sun kissed my toes and wished me good morning. I was unbearably the same. So that's that one.
Johnna. I'm dying over here. Why you doing like that? Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Adolescence is something that's inspired a lot of my poetry because growing up has been really hard for me. I feel like in a lot of ways I started growing up very early, and in a lot of ways I never got the chance to be a child. So through my newborn independence as an 18-year-old, of course, going off to college and, living on my own, I've had a lot more opportunity to experience what does it mean to be a child? What does it mean to be an adolescent? that type of freedom is just really important to me, which is a good segue into the second one that I plan to read today. I wrote it in some of my last days in my dorm before I moved back home, thinking about what I was there for and who I was there for. And the only answer to that question was, of course, that I was there for me. So this one is titled Memoir. I'll remember the park bench on the tall hill, singing to the stars as we climbed up to meet them. I'll remember nights on the floor of a musty college dorm, listening to music I'd never really heard of before. Like liquid gold cast over me in a tombstone. It was catharsis, metamorphosis, rebirth, whiskey-laced dreams in the smallest town I've ever seen, and you were here with me, smiling at each other through a silky smokescreen. Stay gold, stay fighting, stay hopeful and clean. She needs the space to dream. So here I declare I make this promise to she, the bookworm, the romantic, the child in me. I'll make it worth it, my love, as long as you give me the dream.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's one that's actually on my poetry Instagram account, which with you posting me and having that account in my bio, that's the first time I've attached my name to that account. So it's an exciting new adventure that I'm a little nervous about, but at the same time, very excited for.
You
So there
deserve
was that one, and then I'm feeling good. So I'm gonna do the third one that I had planned. Let's find it. And this is something I've struggled with throughout my adolescence, is my self-image. I dealt with eating disorders and mental health problems throughout my entire adolescence. And one thing, like we were talking about before, the whole idea of emotional flexibility and pushing yourself as an author. One day I woke up and I felt really bad about myself. And my mirror sits right across from my bed. And I sat on my bed and I stared in my mirror and I said, Johnna, you feel XYZ about yourself today, but I want you, no matter how hard it is, I want you to write a love letter to yourself. So this is my love letter to myself. It's entitled Love Letter to My Mirror, and the alternate title is 1:34 p.m. on a Monday. My dear, you are more than the box she painted you inside. More than a size, more than a being who takes up space, more than a sin to hide. I can trace the story of your life on the reflective little lines peppering your ankles and inner thighs, your lips defined by a blurred pink line. This body is beautiful just because it is mine. And I am in love with the way that it dances. The way the light hits your hair and entrances, how your lips curl at the edges like pressed flowers in old romances. Soft and brave, though they've been damaged. Your freckles playing peekaboo with the sunshine, and laugh lines, making a home at the edges of your amber eyes. Look at that smile. Darling, you're happy and you're lovely, and I'm so lucky you're mine.
Johnna, that that's it right there. Like that is. I'm glad
Yeah,
you attached.
first ever reading.
I'm glad you attached your name to your new poetry account because,
Thank you.
like, oh man, AG, how are you gonna follow that up?
Oh no, that was amazing, to be completely honest with you. So props to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So I've got like four, I feel like solid 4 or 5 solid ones, because I feel like, I don't know if I'm the oldest one here. I'm 21. I don't know if I'm the oldest. But
I think Jlani might be a little bit
okay.
older.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 23. I'm the oldest one
Okay,
here.
there we go. You're the oldest. Got it. Okay. Second oldest. I don't know. I just feel like the majority of what I've written has been about me coming to terms with my adolescence, because I also feel, in a sense, that I grew up incredibly quickly due to the fact that I've had a difficult, life, as we all have. I also deal with the eating disorder and other mental illnesses, so I feel like that all culminates into what my adolescence means. So I've got a couple. None of my pieces have titles. I don't ever title anything. I don't know why. I just never have. So there's no titles. Okay. There is pain settling in my hip and life between my bones, and this is age, stagnant and yet ever growing. There is joy walking between my fears and laughing at my mother, imminent and honest. There is intimacy resting on my fingertips, kissing tactile thoughts, looming over a sense of painstaking grace. Meeting desire where there is tenderness, warm and enduring in spite of modern complacency. There is confidence sinking in cycles continuing, a challenge accepted and detonated in beauty. There is leaving, coming, burning a wish, and knowing hope may begin. That's the first one. I really love that one.
I love it.
Not to like toot my own horn, but I really do like that piece because I feel like it's a good ode to what it means to me to grow up.
The two beats before modern complacency, like that's those 6 words bar. Like that's just a bar. Like it's
Thanks. Okay. This next one is older. I think this was one of the first maybe 5 or so pieces that I was writing when I started this last year. So touch the ceiling where you couldn't before. The paint is chipping in places you never noticed. Light coming in the windows is paler still, coughing up scents of oak moss and amber. Is this how you remember it? That's that one. I wrote that in the shower because I realized at my parents' house, it sounds so stupid, but I realized at my parents' house that I could touch the ceiling in the bathroom because I hadn't been there in so long because I moved out, but I realized that I could touch the ceiling. So, and that's where that came from.
no cap. I freestyle in the morning I freestyle in the shower every morning, and my best writing. Oh
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Yeah. So that one's from the shower. Next one, I wrote this. I remember I wrote this in the morning in my bed in my apartment. And I was just feeling really, I don't know, I guess I just felt like there was something coming. That means not, that's very general, but I just felt like my life was kind of at a standstill up until that point. And I just had a brief little moment where I felt like, okay, something's coming. I have forgotten the exhaustion briefly, broken the reverie. It is impossible to lose sight of meaning, though I struggle to chase it. Delicate mornings make it hard to see what's real and what is merely a trick of the light. There lies frustration in the redundancy, an obligation to pose as more than broken. Threatened by the silent violence and tested by faith, imminence is waiting. Okay.
I like you said like pose as something other than broken.
Yeah, an obligation to pose is something more than broken. Thank you. Okay, this one I wrote, I feel like I have a lot, but I just feel like I've written so much stuff about my adolescence and growing up and being home. And this one I wrote when I was at my parents' house for Christmas break, which anytime I go home anymore is very strange to me because it doesn't really feel like home. It just feels like my parents' house. So anytime I'm there, I just feel kind of a little out of place. So that's what this one is. It is only January 6th, and I am content with being sick of the repetition. Cycles catch up to me with haste, no matter how far I run, no matter how few footsteps I leave behind. Disregard the year, an all too familiar scene. Resting my head on a packed suitcase, listening to the record skip with practiced ease, moving only to redirect the ache. Tired of having to embrace the pattern, the consistency of my resilience is damning. I fell asleep on the floor again. My neurosis has taken up the bed. An avoidant to any sense of security, committed and unregulated. Don't tell my mother, I'm closer to nowhere.
I like that one. That one's deep. It's like I felt that one on a a real level.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have two more, and I promise I'm done. This one I wrote a couple of weeks ago. I have an issue with being a little bit of a control freak, and I worry about time all the time. And I had a moment a couple weeks ago where I realized, like, I don't ever want to be trapped in like certainty or finality or like knowing what's coming, because that would drive me insane. So that was a moment where I got to let go of my control freak aspect of me for a little bit. There is horror in the finite, robbed of living with the uncertain terms, joining hands with fears made to scale, denied the chance to trust the glory of indecision. Imagery impaired by permanence. Reimagined ignorance has forgotten its bliss. Every bird born in its cage, unknowing in their own tragedy. How do I face a future stained with finality?
Reimagine ignorance that forgot its place. Like, you be having some bars. I see you. Like,
I get lucky. Yeah.
You be having some lines. I'm having to like think twice, you know.
All right, this is my last one. This one's really just kind of the sentence, but I really love this one. This one's about my eating disorder. I have an eating disorder. I've had it since I was about 10. It's changed shape as I've gotten older, and it's just really weird, and I'm probably never gonna like completely make my peace with it, but that's what it says. It says, a body is a thing that exists to torment you, and there is so much of it left to make peace with. Originally, I had written the word tame, and I crossed it out, and I wrote make peace with, kind of as a sign of like me knowing that I have to keep trying to be in recovery rather than just solve the problem. And that's all I got.
I saw that one on your page, and I really enjoyed it.
I remember you commenting on it, yeah.
I also struggle with eating disorders, so like, you two are brave. And Jlani touched on abortion, which is heavy and something that plagues my brothers. And it's like decisions, and I'm just really proud of all of you. Like, y'all really came out and did your thing. And like, wait, can everyone go back into gallery view? Like, wow, this has been amazing. AG, Johnna, Jlani, he said his internet was gonna go in and out because he's on the train, but like, that was incredible. Like, that was real art. Like, I felt like I was experiencing something. Johnna and AG, the way you two write is very much like lyrical prose. It's interesting. Johnna, I really enjoyed your Icarus. What was
Icarus, and I make a lot of references in my writing to Persephone because she's a figure in Greek mythology that I've always felt a really deep connection to. Oftentimes in my writing, if you hear a mention of Persephone, it's almost like an allegory for me, how I see myself. But Icarus was something new. I haven't done a lot with Icarus, so I don't know. I thought it was interesting to view adolescence through the idea of like this misguided idea of what flight is and what heights we're supposed to reach. So, yeah.
right? So when you think about adolescence, this is why I picked this prompt for us tonight, because you're not done with adolescence until you're like 29, scientists say, and it's just like all of your life is review. You pour over your childhood. Like, most people default to Freudian like psychology, like who you are is what you had and what you did as a child. And you get older and you review those things and you find beauty in it, or you find pain in it, or you find hate in it, or you find peace in it. And I think it's important that we all confront ourselves on that base level. Like you, Johnna, you were talking about like your mother living vicariously through you forcibly. In AG, you talked about eating disorders, and you talked about just feelings of ignorance from yourself and from other people. Jlani talked about the possibility of being a father when he's still a kid. It's just off the wall powerful. Like, I can't even, like, one of the first things I'd ever written, I don't know if I remember it, but it was something along the lines of, I saw a kid with his father at the park, and I appreciated them the way I was taught to appreciate art. I grew up without my father. And when I say I was taught to appreciate art, I mean I was never taught. I had to teach myself. Like, I grew up on Drake, Kanye, all that. Like, just like that recurring absence, but then that recurring, like, it'll always be in front of you. Like, you don't need someone to tell you about what's in front of you. Like, it'd be nice to have someone, but you don't need it. And yeah, that's basically why I picked this. So, you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap up here?
I just want to say it's been really interesting to listen to everybody's different experiences with adolescence, because I feel like the way the media shows it, in TV shows, movies, everyone's supposed to have the same generalized experience. But I feel like as I grew up, I realized there was so much they never told us that I wasn't ready for. Kind of like you work so hard to get to this finish line and realize this isn't at all what I thought it would be. So I just feel like it's been really cool to listen to everybody's, memories and experiences and the art they made out of it. So thank you for doing this.
Definitely. Thank you, King. I think it's a really unique experience, especially right now with everything going on, to be able to share something so personal and touching with people. Like, besides you, like, I've never met these people before. I've never heard their work. So I'm very grateful to have expanded my horizons in this way and to be able to absorb and learn and appreciate all of our art.
Hi, King here. I just want to take the opportunity to thank and congratulate our speakers one last time. Johnna Blystone, AG, Jlani, amazing artists. And if you like what you saw here on the first episode of KVHP, King's Virtual House of Poetry, stick around. There is so much more to come.